So let's get him in here. There he is.
Let's go, Matt.
Going.
What is going on, man? It's great to have you on the show. Great to meet you. What's happening?
Not too much. You were killing it playing music earlier. I was vibing out, having some lunch, and just listening on my headphones. So it was good.
Awesome.
Every Tuesday, man, 3 p.m. Eastern, we got the vibe going. We got the updates going. Updates not just on, obviously, Dexalot, but also stuff that's occurring in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, you're always welcome to join. But I agree with you 100%. We have a gem here. Jimmy, 2 times the real branding in DJing. Not gonna lie, I tried to break his game many times. Doesn't work. I am a full believer in his skills now, and it's always amazing on Tuesdays.
Guys.
So if you're generally a hip hop DJ, like what's your favorite period of hip hop? Like 90s hip hop, early 2000s? Because there's a lot of differences between time periods.
I think this is the first time on the show that I've been put on the spot in terms of rap knowledge, or rap opinions. So forgive me if I go off for a second, but honestly, man, one of my favorite eras, my favorite era that I know a lot about is probably the 90s, because that's when I was coming up. That's when I was learning a lot about rap. That's when I was this is blowing my mind, which is kind of an easy answer for guys my age. I'm showing my age, but I think the most interesting era of hip hop is the early to mid 80s. That's the coolest, most interesting stuff, because that's when there was really no definition yet. You know what I mean? It was just people were just hey, what if I try this? Hey, I'm going to sample this and I'm going to use these drums and I'm going to rap. I mean, this is back when people were still rapping about DJs being whack. There's a whole song about whack DJs. You know what I mean? So, well, there's many songs about whack DJs, but it's just a different era. It's very interesting to me. And so I think if I had to pick one that I could live in, it would be that early to mid 80s era, because I thought that was the most interesting. But in terms of the stuff I know the best, it's probably the 90s stuff. I do know a really, really wide share of 2000s Southern rap, because I was very plugged into Atlanta rap in the 2000s. But enough about me, man.
2000s Southern rap. I'm trying to think. Is that Chingy? Was he Southern?
He's St. Louis. I'm talking more Gucci Mane, Waka Flocka, Brick Squad. You know what I mean?
Atlanta
stuff. Yeah, and Texas. Gotcha. I love Texas stuff too. So
and
I could talk about rap for hours, man.
Yeah, same. That's I'm kind of a hip hop head. It's definitely it's definitely my most listened to genre. So.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Well, we'll do some. I'll get a request from you towards the end of the show, and we'll do something to take you out. Last week I did a 50 Cent medley for Luigi, so that was a lot of fun.
I'm pretty sure you probably have a few requests on your Slack already. I think intern has a request. You probably got a couple of requests from me, but if we're going hip hop, I will gladly relinquish my requests for the guys here.
Firestorm will defer to the experts on the rap music. Yeah, totally.
Gotta know what you know and what you don't know.
Well, that's what's up, Matt. This is dude, I could talk about rap music with you all day, man. We'll have to do this another time, or you can come over to my Twitch channel too. I do a Twitch where I just play rap and video games. But all that being said, enough shameless plugs from me. Let's get to know Matt. Matt, you're here. BD at Avalabs. We're keeping the Avalabs train rolling, man. Rolling through the station. I wonder if you could just kind of give us some background on you, how you got involved with Avalabs, how you got involved with crypto. We always like to get a back origin story of all our guests. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So grew up in Ohio, went to Ohio State for undergrad, and actually started off in computer science and engineering. Did that for about a year in undergrad, and for some reason I ended up switching to finance, and I kind of regret that decision. If I were to go back to I don't know, 18, 19-year-old Matt, I would probably tell him, hey, stick, although CSE is tough, and you have to really put forth a lot of effort, it'll be worth it long term.
Sure.
So definitely wish that I kind of stuck with that, but switched to finance, and then decided I really found investing to be interesting. So I joined a few investing groups and clubs at Ohio State. And unfortunately, I switched my major kind of late, so I couldn't go the investment banking or wealth management or family office route. I kind of went more corporate finance route directly out of undergrad. But during that period, I was also getting my CFA to help I don't know, polish my resume, I would say, so I could get more in like the traditional investment field.
Sure.
And during the CFA process, it's probably when I found crypto, really starting off with Bitcoin. Um, I remember kind of buying Bitcoin in middle 2020 to late 2020, mainly just as like a money printer, inflation hedge, and then kind of stumbled down the rabbit hole of like blockchain technology and uh, DeFi and really what you could do using blockchain in terms of like efficiencies and settlement and whatnot. So I kind of started off the normie route, and I didn't have like a mentor or anything within this space.
Sure.
So had all my assets just on Coinbase and held Bitcoin and ETH primarily, and started buying some altcoins, but had no guidance as to like which ones to buy. And there's a lot of coin. Yeah. So one thing led to another.
Who has guidance in this stuff, man? I've never heard of like. It sounds to me like you're guiding new guys. So guys, you heard it here first. Matt is gonna suggest stuff, I guess, right?
Not financial advice, no. But yeah, so I started kind of spending more time learning about just like blockchain technology, watching YouTube videos, reading white papers. And one thing led to another. I was like, hey, you probably need to go on chain and like really kind of experiment with this stuff. So at the time, Ethereum mainnet was super expensive. And so I was like, you know what? I can't be getting charged $100 per transaction. I'm unfortunately not a whale. So I actually started off using Polygon. And this was like early 2021 during their liquidity mining program where Curve, Aave, that's kind of your Ethereum blue chips, launched on Polygon. And that's when it just like clicked. It was like a switch within my brain about, hey, like this is the future. And so I became more degenerate in nature, but also I would say more academic and like actually doing my own research and learning about various topics and formulating my own opinions. And then how I kind of got involved with Avalanche is when Rush was announced, I was like, wait, this is like way bigger at the time than Polygon's liquidity mining program. So I'm just going to go over and bridge right away. And this was actually, I think Rush was announced right after Chainlink feeds were introduced on mainnet. And Banky was like the first borrow lend protocol using Chainlink feeds. So put my funds in Banky, messed around with the various dexes. So I used both like Pangolin and Trader Joe at the time, and LP'd into both. And one thing led to another. Kind of fell in love with the user experience of Avalanche, and then that led me to learn about why the user experience is so good, Avalanche consensus, that sort of thing. And I was like, all right, well, this makes sense. It scales, it works. At the time, there weren't any subnets, but as I kind of grew into my own crypto knowledge, I started subscribing more to the horizontal scaling approach or application specific blockchain scaling approach versus like vertical scaling. I think there'll be probably both in the long term, but so I actually got a job here at Avalabs because in November I was like, all right, you're spending way too much time learning about blockchain and not doing your like day job or not studying for the CFA. Right. Why don't you just make this a full-time career? So I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in crypto or Web3. So I started applying to basically as many jobs as possible, whether they're with funds, research groups. Avalanche was actually the only kind of layer one or blockchain network that I applied to just because I was interacting with the Avalabs team on Twitter. And so I went through the interview process at a few different places, and Luigi actually was the one who reached out to me from Avalabs and was like, hey, there's this position that opened up. It's part of my team. Like, you should apply to it. And so it's kind of funny. This is actually probably over a year ago was the interview process now, because my 1 year anniversary at Avalabs is next week already.
Happy early anniversary, by the way.
I know.
Early anniversary.
My early anniversary. And so because Luigi already knew me, I got to like skip the first round interview process with like the Avalabs recruiters. And my first interview was with Luigi. And if you don't know Luigi, he's a very interesting guy, especially as an interviewer, because there's not a lot of structure. And it's like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like, and so it was kind of a lot like he wasn't laughing at the time, but it wasn't a structured interview where it was definitely felt more, I don't know, relaxed and kind of shooting the shit regards to like actual crypto opinions versus like your very structured interview questions. Tell me a time about you did this. Tell me like that sort of thing. So
Sure.
it went perfectly with Luigi, and he's like, "Well, I don't know the next steps in the process, but I'm sure you'll have another interview with someone else." And so I spoke to Eric, spoke to John Nahas and Lydia. Everything went phenomenally, and kind of realized this was the team for me, and they offered me a job, luckily, and I accepted, and it's been kind of game over ever since. And been loving working here the past year, and it really doesn't feel like a job when it just like truly interests you. So
Right, dude.
Exactly. I think, this is a common thing that hopefully our audiences notices as well, right? We've been sort of talking to a good number of Avalabs folks in the show over the last few weeks. My primary observation is nobody's truly talking about what they do as a job. And, everybody sort of exudes that passion and that, fun element that they're having in their jobs, which I think is unique. Congratulations to you guys with respect to setting that up and making it happen, right? And congratulations on early anniversary.
Yeah, and let me just add, like, frankly, that sounds a lot like my onboarding process for Dexalot, like when I got hired. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's really relatable what you're saying. And guys, if you're watching in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, if this is something that interests you and you want to make it your job, go for it, because we're living proof that it can happen. You know what I mean?
The beauty with these stories is the fact that everybody that ultimately lands in these positions at these stages already have spent personal time to pick up the knowledge, right? It's not like as Matt said, it's not a structured 5-question case study based interview.
Right.
You are there because you want to be there, which makes the conversations a lot more productive, the process a lot more fun, and ultimately I think it's a little bit easier to identify the right kind of people. Again, I think it's very difficult to keep that dynamic going as entities and companies grow, but so far, we've observed this exact thing that Matt, you just mentioned, across the rest of the Avalabs folks as well. So
yes, intern, we are having fun, to answer intern's question in the chat, and ahoy to you too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If it wasn't fun, we wouldn't be doing it. Yeah, exactly. Quite frankly.
Exactly.
So, Matt, number one question. I looked at your LinkedIn. Tell us about that picture, buddy.
Wow. Firestorm to the throat over here, man.
How old are you in that picture? And I'm throwing it out there as alpha, guys. Go check Matt on LinkedIn and his Twitter, of course. But
I was probably 20 years old, and it's funny. I'm 25 now, and I have a lot of gray hair for someone 25. I just got a haircut, so you can't really see it too much. But no, I haven't taken another like professional headshot picture since then. And so I'm like, I don't know if I can use like a really casual LinkedIn picture. I don't know. That's been like the personal debate. So if anyone sees me in person and they can get me.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that question is I am a terrible photo guy. Like, people will take pictures of me. Like, I always come out terrible. Okay. So our producer, John, has always complained about, my pictures. We've actually done Avalanche videos together, and he's like, bro, like, you need to learn how to set up, the frame and do this and do that. And, I've never had professional pictures done. And eventually he, like, at one point made me take so many that I have one picture that actually makes sense. And I know your dilemma, right? You take that one picture that probably stays forever because you just can't take another good one, that type thing.
And I'm the exact same way, where it's funny, like growing up, I would say my own like family joked around with me because I would be that kid that like doesn't know how to smile and just like cheeses super hard, where it's like every yeah exactly. And so I don't know, it kind of carried over. I feel like to adulthood, and so it's like the best smiles I have, it's generally like forced laughs or like actual like mid laugh if someone can take a picture of me mid laugh. And so other than that, yeah, pictures I'm not the best at. So
Quite
I feel your
honestly,
pain.
you know, I sometimes feel like I gotta study Instagram because you come across these like accounts where every picture looks good, and I'm like, how do they do it? This must be like some sort of scripted thing because in every picture I take, I look bad. There's none that actually looks good. But anyways,
I think you look great, Firestorm.
Oh,
For what it's worth.
I appreciate it. You know, we obviously have multiple filters turned on for me right now.
It's a love fest over here.
Yeah. But anyways, you know, moving on to a little bit more serious stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what you do at Avalabs? I think again, a lot of people see a lot of folks being super active in the ecosystem, but it's not always clear as to, you know, what each individual folks like person looks after. So it'd be great if you can walk people through, you know, the things that you're working on.
Yeah, so I would say I started off being primarily focused on DeFi, and about 2 months after I started, we hired Morgan, who leads our institutional and capital markets efforts. Um, and through that, Eric and I, so Eric Kang, who I believe is a guest maybe 2 or 3
Yes.
episodes ago,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
we both started to help her quite a bit, and so we split time between DeFi and institutional capital markets, and of course, being a part of Luigi's team, I feel like you just end up doing everything. And so I got tasked with leading a lot of our external data efforts as well. So both from like an integrations and reporting standpoint, and help out with a lot of like infra tooling and security projects as well. So now I kind of just introduce myself as a BD, like a generalist, but my official job title I think is BD associate focused on DeFi, and that's how we
Interesting.
know each other. So
Interesting.
yep.
Wow. So I guess DeFi we hear about quite a bit. We have Luigi, we have you, we have Eric, and we talked about DeFi a lot. I think I want to touch on the institutional side a little bit. Obviously, we had Morgan on the show. I think the institutional subnet was just picking up, but nowadays I see a lot of stuff that's happening with Intane. Do you mind just giving us another sort of recap of what's happening in the institutional subnet? You know, for the folks that are listening, the institutional subnet is the type of thing that we need for the next large push and next large cycle. So it would be great to get an update on that part.
Yeah. So Avalanche having this subnet architecture really allows for permissioned or walled garden environments, even at like the validator level. And so when you have kind of institutions that want to go on chain, generally they have quite a bit of compliance and regulations that must be met. And Intane is kind of one of those protocols that had those restrictions. So it's funny, I lived in Pittsburgh at the time when I first met the Intane team, and one of their kind of core team members, his name is Eric, also lives in Pittsburgh. And so I first met the Intane team while I was at a conference in Florida called Permissionless, and the intro call went super well. And then we kind of decided to meet in person in Pittsburgh. That's when I gave him the whole Avalanche pitch, and we had native USDC, and there will be eventually native messaging and a transport layer and whatnot. And I think their team really fell in love with the architecture from an institutional side of things. And one thing led to another, and they decided to launch Intane markets on an Avalanche subnet. And there might be a chance that Intane admin also gets launched on a subnet at some point in time. But essentially what Intane markets is it's a tokenization marketplace for asset-backed securities. So like mortgage-backed securities, that sort of thing. And one of the restrictions they had was in relation to like every validator for Intane markets had to be in the US, be regulatory compliant. And they're kind of opening it up in a permissioned way to other institutions that might actually be taking part of the deals on their subnet. And so that's maybe kind of the 6-month to year-long vision about scaling their validator set. And so that kind of parlays more into the institutional subnet, which I think was announced maybe last March or early April. But essentially what that is it's a fully KYC or KYB subnet, both at the user but also builder level. And so the goal for that is to kind of get your more traditional institutions, banks, et cetera, in the US comfortable actually going on chain. And so I know we've kind of been MIA since that announcement, but I'll leak a little bit of alpha. Be on the lookout sometime in the middle of March for a very large announcement related to the institution.
Oh my God! Sound effects, bro! Come on, J2T, let's go, man.
You know what? Here's the thing: the alpha horn. There we go. The alpha. I moved some stuff so we could make the setup a little more streamlined. I apologize. The sound effects aren't front and center this week for that alpha.
So I don't want to leak anything in particular or too specific.
I mean, you can. We're no stranger of BD folks generously leaking alpha on this show. You know, we're among friends. It's all good. You know, we'll just take that information and run with it. Listen.
Yeah. So I'll just say be on the lookout for that. But there are some big names being introduced within that subnet, and I think it's really coming together. It's kind of live on testnet right now in a permission environment where we're adding teams and users one by one, but
awesome.
Should be a big month ahead. So
that's great to hear, man. Awesome. We appreciate sharing that update. I actually see a couple of things in chat. First, I see Absolute Zero as promised.
Oh my
rocking
God.
the PFP. Congratulations.
Congrats, player.
You're now part of the PFP fam. And we have a question from our very own Tim Shan, COO, the best COO that Dexalot has.
I'm going to pin that in the chat here.
Yeah, if you want to pin, but I'll read the question. Has what happened last year changed the way you approach BizDev? Do you provide more hands-on guidance, and are you more selective in who you help? I think it's a good question.
Yeah, so I think after last year, a lot of the noise has died down, and you really have a clear view of who wants to build kind of for the long term because of the technology, and they're not just here to kind of grift and try and only make money or something in nature. So generally, I would say most of the BD done here at Avalabs is done in kind of two ways. One, meaning teams that really want to work with us in kind of showing their own interest in Avalanche and the Avalanche technology, and the other being like large marquee partnerships like your AWS, Tencent announcements. So I think you guys are more the former, in which you truly believe in the tech, and that's why we like you guys. You're here for the long term. You're very good partners about like just focusing here on Avalanche.
All I'm gonna say is our subnet was built pre-Hyper SDK. Okay, just gonna put that out there. You know, there aren't that many like us. So listen, shameless plug.
Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. Yeah. Just saying.
No, and I mean, I think you guys made the right decision considering I look at Avascan as well as like our own official explorer for just like various data and statistics points. And your guys' subnet, the true time to finality of blocks is like 0.38 seconds, which is unreal compared to like every other ecosystem. Like we talk to Cosmos projects or like any other projects that maybe are building central limit order books or anything in that nature. And even with like heavy optimizations to Tendermint, they can only still get to like 1.5 seconds true time.
Now, here is the cool thing about what you just said, right? I thought I was the only crazy nerd that thinks about this stuff, but traditional finance trades depends on the asset class. The trade executions happen, you know, sometimes it depends again on the asset class, but like, let's say for lack of a better sort of example, 30 milliseconds, right? Yes, we're higher than that. But remember, what happens at Dexalot is execution of the trade as well as the settlement of the trade. At that very moment, you could also withdraw the assets, which is not possible in TradFi. So in the existing solution, we are able to beat execution plus settlement combined time frame by like eons, like by orders of magnitude. With that said, the subnet technology, custom VM technology is actually going to hopefully give us the ability to compete in the trade execution time frame by itself as well, right? again, 30 milliseconds, 60 milliseconds, it should be possible from what we've seen with custom VMs. I mean, we've all seen what Patrick has been putting out. There's going to be a bright future in this space, particularly for exchanges like us that have a central limit order book, and that's going after capital efficiency because the underlying technology actually works. We no longer have to work around the problem created by the protocol itself. So I appreciate you looking at those numbers and mentioning them. It's great to know that there's at least one more person besides me.
Nihan Cengiz.
Nihan and Cengiz obviously look at it because they built the subnet. But what I mean is like folks that are like outside of the two co-founders.
No, but I'm saying thank you to Nihan Cengiz.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a nerd in a lot of ways in nature. But kind of back to the initial question, I think at this point in time, like some of the partnership announcements, some of what's built, it really is revolutionary in nature. And I almost think to some extent a bear market was a good thing. And it sounds bad, but I think it allowed for people to kind of reground themselves, focus on building, focus on the tech, and kind of wash out the hype. I still think there is sometimes a little bit of hype or saturation of people bending what's really happening behind the scenes. But that's crypto and blockchain for you. So I think at the end of the day, kind of formulation of one's own opinions is so important in this space.
Absolutely. And I guess just sort of building on what you said earlier, what percentage, so let's like think about the bull market and how crazy stuff was during DeFi summer. What percentage of the total noise disappeared? Is it 30%? Is it 60%? Is it 90% from your perspective? Just to get a sense, right?
So I would say somewhere between 50 and 75% of the noise disappeared, which helps tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
It helps. Like,
yeah, it's a big chunk.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because like when you already filter out that many projects, you generally, after an initial intro call or maybe two calls, you can tell which teams are strong, which want to be here like long term, which actually are Avalanche focused and that sort of thing. And it really makes it easy to quickly weed out who we should be working with, who we want as partners and everything. So.
Awesome. I see another question from Shiny Cakes. I'm going to read the question, but I think we need a couple clarifications. The question is, are the funds on another smart contract while use, or is it still safe in Dexalot style? Is it just an API tool? I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Would you mind clarifying that, Shiny Cakes?
Do you mean with respect to institutional subnets? Because we talked about asset-backed tokenized assets. Is that what we're talking about here? Yeah. So if you clarify, we'll ask Matt next time around. But another thing I heard from you, Matt. So you mentioned 4 verticals, if you will, right? DeFi, data/analytics, institutional, and security. I want to talk a little bit about the data piece. What is happening on the data side? Again, we talk a lot about DeFi and the institutional side because we think, that's going to be one of the bigger verticals. Also gaming, which I'm surprised you're not touching, but I guess a good reason. Tell us a little bit about the data vertical.
Firestorm.
Yeah. What's happening in the data vertical?
Yeah, so we actually do have a gaming team, but yeah, unfortunately,
no, I know.
Like I was gonna say I help with like 1 or 2 gaming projects. There's one called Portal Fantasy, which Eric and myself we actually have weekly calls with. So we've been incubating a gaming project kind of on the side as well, which is fun to do because I'm a gamer at heart. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, in relation to data, generally I help with both. Integrations and reporting. So we have an internal data team, a few different data engineers that help with that, in which we can kind of track various like blockchain metrics, indexing of potential new subnets, making explorers for external partners. But what I do specifically is working with those external partners, ensuring that Avalanche data is holistic in nature, that dashboards are reading the correct data, that if they're publishing a quarterly or annual report, it has basically all of the ecosystem news that has happened either in that quarter or in that year. and ensuring that it's true and kind of hopefully relatively unbiased. I mean, everyone has a bias, or like bags are a big thing within this space, but so a lot of what I do is like reading through those reports as well. So whether they're from like Masari to Black, etc., and ensuring that what they're saying is factual and correct in nature. And then from an integration side, whether it's like, I don't know, Nansen, Coin Metrics, Amber Data, that sort of thing, working on those partnerships and helping with their integrations. And we even have like kind of a retail focus with some of the dashboards, such as like Flipside or Dune, in which if you know SQL, you can actually make your own dashboards.
Right. Okay, so Shiny Cakes just came back, just reading the statement. Or maybe I did not understand what Hummingbot is doing. Tried in the past one trading tool and was a bit scared interacting with a smart contract. So what Hummingbot ultimately is a full solution. And again, they have a video demo on their webpage where it's a single tool. You launch it. It asks you a few questions. Think of it like Windows installers, for example, for those folks out there who use Windows. When you're trying to install an application, you get a series of questions. First, of course, it will make you agree to a massively long, extremely boring legal contract. Then it will ask you where to install the stuff. Then it will do the installation. And sometimes they will ask you to, do configurations. Hummingbot actually had a demo, which I thought was very powerful, in a similar vein. It asks you what you want to do, gives you a few options, you choose one, then it will ask you additional questions to set up that thing entirely, and then you press start, and it actually works. What that means from a Dexalot perspective is, first, they'll have open source code, I think, for people to pick up, because they're doing the integration into the exchange. Second, they'll have the ability available for people to pick up their software and enter bids and offers if they choose to do so on Dexalot, which allows them to participate in DIP as well as get the best prices available, in our ecosystem, basically. That's what it is. Hopefully that was a good answer. Anything you guys want to add before I go on to the next one?
No, that Shiny Cake says, thanks for the clarification. I think we're good.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Matt, one more question. I've obviously been seeing tweets about this. I think Avalabs is now hiring for a role called developer relations. Tell us what that is. I think, again, I kind of want to use these forums to reach the audiences where, if there's people interested in this type of stuff, let's push our ecosystem forward. So what is a developer relations role?
Yeah, so we have some of the strongest platform engineers around and kind of infra engineers, but generally we've lacked developer outreach as well as onboarding in nature. So an external dev role in which the person kind of inherently has to be extroverted or likes to speak, which sometimes can be challenging to find for devs. But so it's a combination of having at least some developer industry knowledge, being able to hopefully code, but also being extroverted and well-spoken in nature, and really kind of onboarding either new protocols, new like dev education platforms, individual devs, devs building maybe with like
I want to say
questions.
Big companies call this maybe sales engineering. Is this what it is? Where you're like a external solution architect, you do build basic POCs and whatnot to allow people to better onboard with your tech? Or do you see these roles working on the core, protocol level stuff as well?
Yeah, so you're exactly correct. So like building POCs, like basically providing examples of what you can do by using Avalanche technology. So having like open forums, like a Discord where people can come in and ask questions, or office hours in which new devs within the ecosystem can kind of get examples, like you said, maybe building a basic custom virtual machine to do a specific task. And so it's funny, Luigi, who was the head of DeFi, and he still is, but he's leading the hiring efforts as well as the DevRel team until it kind of gets scaled up and there's a leader within that team. And so we have Gabriel Cardona, who is kind of a developer evangelist, and he's been with Avalabs for a while now.
Since day one.
Exactly. So we hired actually a gentleman named Uzman from Chainstack, and I think he started, I believe, the 22nd. So this is his second week on the job, and he will actually be here at ETH Denver with Gabriel, kind of spreading the good word of Avalanche and meeting with various teams and developers and figuring out ways that he can help as well as collaborate with them. So
That's awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. Guys, this is one of the more interesting types of jobs out there, in my opinion, primarily because you are going to build stuff on the fabric, right? The infrastructure is there. First, you end up talking to people that are trying to build things. Then you're looking at what infrastructure is available. You take the DeFi Legos, or you take the Legos available as a part of the L1 Avalanche platform, and you propose solutions to people that are doing real world applications. Again, the way adoption occurs is when real world applications adopt this underlying technology and provide their services to the end users without the end users knowing how this works. So it's a very important job and probably very fun job. So we kind of want to put a horn on there as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I got two questions before we let you go. First question is, will you come back? I always ask this of everybody, but will you come back and talk to us again? Because this has been really fun, and I love that you asked me a question about rap music, because I had to stop myself from going off for like 20 minutes. So
yeah, I mean, maybe we could do a whole special episode focused on rap music. That'd be fun, where it's like half and half Avalanche and Dexala, and then half about rap music. So,
dude, yeah. I mean, I'm 100% about that. So we could maybe do that on my channel too, though. We could maybe do, or I know Coop's doing some twitching now too, so maybe Coop would want to get involved. But yeah, that would be a lot of fun, man. I think we'd have some fun. And that used to be my job. I used to be a radio personality who talked about hip hop. So it would be fun to get back into that sometime. But my second question, speaking of hip hop, what do you want to hear when I take us out in the mix? What are you trying to hear? I got all eras covered. You don't have to. I know I said 90s like an old person, but trust me, I got crates for days. Look at all these records. Those are all rap records, man.
You know what? Let's play some Biggie. I think there's a song called "I Got a Story to Tell."
Oh my God, you know who that's about, right?
Yeah, that's an NBA player, right? Yeah.
It's about, you know who it is though, right?
Who is it? I forget.
That song is about Anthony Mason from the New York Knicks.
Yep, that's who it is.
And
listening to the lyrics, it's interesting. It's wild,
crazy. Biggie basically, Biggie made Anthony Mason look not so tough. Let's just put it that way. And Anthony Mason was like the toughest Knick back in the day. Like I was a real young kid when that era of New York Knicks was a team that was like 93, 94 Knicks, mostly 94, 95 was when Mason was sixth man of the year in, I think, 94, 95, right? I still have an Anthony Mason jersey. He was my favorite Knick because I was a basketball player when I was younger, right? But I was like never that tall. I was wide. You know what I'm saying? I was wide and strong. I could rebound and play defense. And that's why I loved Anthony Mason. But then I also love Biggie, man. I also love Biggie. And I heard that song was about Mason, and I was like, ah. So we'll do some Biggie for you. I got a story to tell coming up for you, man.
Got you. Yeah, that was after the Patrick Ewing era, right? Like it now I'm like
when Ewing was like fading out, kind of. Yeah. So
gotcha.
Yeah. He was still there, but you know.
That was like the reputation though of the Knicks, like for that era. That's what my dad always talks about. How I mean, there was the Bad Boy Pistons as well, but the Knicks, I feel like I guess you could. The Pistons had the era with Rasheed Wallace as well, but yeah, the Knicks were like specifically rough during that era, and
dude, they were
hard
super
fouls and whatnot.
Yep. Well, the thing that was crazy, this has turned into a rap basketball crypto podcast. I love it. The thing that's crazy about the Knicks is that they were such a defense-oriented team back in the early 90s and mid-90s that when they made it to the finals in 94, the next year was when they moved the three-point line in, so the games would be higher scoring. That's how defensive the Knicks were, and that's how boring that series was, man. I grew up in New York. I love the Knicks. My favorite basketball team ever, but yeah, man, they were super boring to watch because they were so defense oriented. Knicks and Bulls game were awesome. Tim Shan, 100% on point with that. I still remember I had the poster of John Starks dunking over Jordan, B.J. Armstrong, and Horace Grant in my room when I was a kid. So I could talk about rap in the New York Knicks all day, guys. But and I'll do so. How about we do some multiple Biggie joints for you? Is how you feeling that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Because he's my favorite from back in the
LFG.
day. Let's LFG. I love it, man. Matt, this has been awesome, dude. We could talk about rap and basketball all day, and also Avalanche and Dex a lot. So it's a
Hell
perfect
yeah.
fit. So thank you for being here, Matt. It's one of those deals, man, where whenever we have someone from Avalabs come through, it literally feels like it's about 10 minutes we've been talking, and it's been for like over an hour. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Dude,
I
I
know,
didn't even
it's such a-
realize what time it is.
Yeah, same. I know. It's wild.
well, dude, thanks so much for being here. We got to have you back. I'm going to play some Biggie for you on the way out. But before we do that, we're going to give away a PFP and spin the big wheel. All right. So, Matt, thank you so much for being here. It was great
Thanks
to
for
meet you.
joining, man.
Great hanging out. Let's do it
Always
again.
a pleasure.
And and let's talk about rap on Twitch or Twitter one of these days.
Yeah, sounds great to me. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Anytime, man. Thanks for
See you
being
around.
here. We'll see you again
Bye-bye.
soon. Take care, Matt.